BlackBox record. Date 22/15. 31st December 452.
Video files taken from the perspective of one of the soldiers. You see 8 heavily armored figures in grayish Hephaestus power armor, each bearing slight differences from each other. They are accompanied by 4 large robots who have various bags strapped to them. Being pushed by one of the robots is the sarcophagus, hovering, open, with 4 rounded devices that look like ribs on each side of it, seemingly keeping it suspended. The group are just entering the cavern and begin deploying their supplies. The door has nothing on it, unlike now.
Yuka, set up the key. Tango, grape, and shy at alert. Likelihood of ghost activity beyond the seal.
One of the soldiers, Yuka, heads towards the large wall made of a stony white material. All along its face are circular glowing glyphs, and taking from their bag a strange porcelain white object matching the make of the wall. Sight is obscured by their body. 3 of the soldiers, Tango, Grape, and Shy, stand in formation, one of them bearing far heavier armor and a heavy machine gun with a belt-fed clip. The camera turns away, briefly catching sight of 2 soldiers standing by a tunnel, leading further down, separate from the one you had entered. The camera turns to one of the other soldiers, whose armor is lighter than the rest, wielding an assault rifle.
Apps! Perimeter sweep!
Seem to have ceased.
The fuck for? Nothing here but rocks, rocks, and more fucking rocks. Sweep! Now! Evidence of bleeding, but fully formed cavern and entrance point. Tick! Keep an eye on the clock. We need to move fast or we're in some serious shit. Understood.
Soldier 8, Epps, begins moving around the room, before in a couple moments the sound of a high-pitched hum and pouring water turns the attention of the camera, who turns briefly, passing by the robots who now hold an open sarcophagus. The faint glowing lines on the wall are now a bright purple color. Embedded at the center of the door is a diamond-shaped object made of the same material as the wall. The wall seems to dissolve from the center, liquidating into a sloshing liquid that falls until reaching the ground, from which the liquid trails up the sides, adding layer and layer onto itself, and forming grooves into it before seemingly hardening, purple glyphs still on its surface. Yuka falls behind the heavily armored soldier, arming themselves with a large sidearm. The other soldiers fall back from the entrance and group into a formation.
Weapons hot, people! RG charges, thermal lances, if you got them, use them!
Looking ahead past the gateway, an angle of down looking up is a short tunnel with a flooring made of the same white material as the wall and gate, with faint blue glyphs in it, leading into a large open room. Curved rocky ceiling made of a glassy dark purple material trail the sides. Leading to the center of the ceiling, a hole goes up, a bright white glow descending from up there. Much of the room is empty, save for the middle where a bright light trails up from the center. Surrounding the center are various pillars, some 4-sided diamond shapes, others flat, while others resemble trees with various curve-like waves branching out surrounding it. Floating around it in an orbit are large objects which slowly change shape, like a flower blooming and being pulled in on itself. Both are made of the same white material as the door and glow with the blue glyphs. A strange light radiates from the ground, though the angle of looking from the bottom up before ascending hides any possible cause. The group of soldiers with weapons ready begin moving closer in an ordered formation. The sight of a rifle comes into view as the camera-wielding soldier readies himself. As they step up towards the gateway, more of the center comes into view, though it is difficult to tell due to the distance and quality of the video feed. At the center is a pillar of light. Floating rings which radiate with a fierce luminosity shine in a forest green color. Inside them is a faint field and a strange alien figure whose body contrasts the room with the colors of red, greens, and pinks. Much of them is obscured by a thin membrane reaching from either side of them, almost resembling wings. This image lingers for less than 2 seconds, however, as the moment the camera-wielding soldier crosses the gateway, the feed cuts to blackness, leaving it there, lingering for a few seconds. The feed suddenly comes back into view for half a second. Facing one of the glassy purple walls, a sudden burst of light pans across their vision in a blink of an eye, a crackle following. The feed cuts back out to blackness for a couple more seconds. The sound of several rail rifles in full auto deafen any noise save for the screaming of the soldier wielding the camera. Sparks of lightning and flashings coming from their gun as they fire in the direction of one of the blurs, briefly passing by an image of one of the soldiers with a white-hot line across their torso, falling to the ground in two. The feed cuts back out for a couple more seconds. The feed cuts back into a soldier rapidly firing at something off-screen, until a couple of frames another burst of light flashes as a large alien creature materializes behind them. The alien creature is large, reaching upwards of 8 feet tall, its body appearing very smooth and curvy, with an abdomen that ends in a curving but smooth, stiff skirt before leading upwards, where if on a human its stomach would be, where the body bends inwards, forming a crescent shape before bending back out and then some in the chest area. Much of the skin is made out of a glossy gray stone-like material, with darker splotches over it, leading over to its arms that stretch long, emerging very thin from the shoulder, before getting significantly wider and larger by the wrist, forming an almost teardrop shape. Emerging from its wrist were 6 purple fingers, made of a dark purple, opaque metal-like material, stretching to a length of nearly 2 feet. The fingers are relatively thin, almost resembling blades. The neck stretched, made up of the same purple material, but trailed forward in an arch before ending at an oval, almost mast-shaped head. The head, or face, of the creature was smooth and made of that white glossy stone, just as the body and arms, with a slight roundness at the center, but otherwise featureless face, save for a ring of purple metal around the mask. Behind it were 4 pink lights, forming spiral circular shapes, vaguely reminiscent of waves, symmetrical with each other, the 2 on the bottom being smaller and of a different shape than the 2 on the top. The alien creature appeared in an instant behind the soldier, the camera only turning in time to get a full view as the creature plunged its claws into the back of the soldier with little wind-up, puncturing the suit of power armor with ease. The soldier, screaming, was raised several feet into the air, dropping their gun as they were risen by the creature, who seemed to look at them with a curiosity. The camera-wielding soldier was firing into the creature with full auto, the bullets being stopped by a faint shimmering of blue light, whose design resembled shattered glass sitting on a liquid, slowly forming and flowing and pushing into one another. In the background, a bolt smashes into one of the robots, whose form glows white-hot as a dark blue flame burns atop the robot as it melts into slag. A bright light emerges from the alien's wrist, cutting the soldier in two. The moment the soldier's separate parts were no longer on the alien's claws, it burst forward in a flash of light, the camera feed cutting on the last image of the alien's mask-like head, taking up the entire view. The feed cuts back out for several seconds before resuming on the outside, heavy breathing with the first active motion being the door closing, the purple diamond object still at the center of the door. 3 of the soldiers are missing, leaving the heavily armored soldier with the heavy machine gun, the lightly armored soldier, Epps, Yuka, and 2 others. 2 of the robots were left, with the sarcophagus hovering in front of them, now sealed. The camera footage is far more shaky, as one of the soldiers comes over pulling at the camera-wielding soldier for their left arm, which is now cut off. Armor around it by the elbow still orange-hot as they spray a foam onto it, sealing it completely.
Couldn't have asked for a bigger shit show. Clear up any lost gear and get ready to move out.
As Yuka speaks, to the right of the view, Epps leans his back onto the wall, right hand seemingly phasing through it. After a second, they seem to notice, and still to the far right of the screen, pushes their arm through it before yelling and grabbing hold of their gun.
Oh fuck! Glimmerfield! Glimmer!
Epps is cut off as before they could aim down their gun, a bolt of light hits them firmly in the head, their neck bending sharply as their helmet quickly begins glowing, its antenna and other features on the outside melting as Epps begins firing down the hallway, taking several more shots to the rest of their armor, which too seems to melt, but remains steady as the Glimmerfield collapses. The camera-wielding soldier fires down the hall with a pistol, running to the rightmost wall for cover as counter-shots emerge and several figure silhouettes emerge from the smoke, only some of their forms humanoid. The heavily armored figure comes into view, firing shots into the smoke, hitting several of the figures as they collapse, with the robots following behind firing heavy machine guns. One of the robots begins blinking before opening fire into the back of the heavily armored figure, blasting apart their armor in a torrent of lead and blood before the other robot annihilates it in turn. In a sea of shots, a figure with forearm appears, firing multiple assault rifles at the soldier, killing two of them before one of the soldiers shoots at it with a rail rifle, backing into the tunnel they arrive in with a robot and the sarcophagus in tow. The camera-wielding soldier yells out,
Priority 1! Recovery!
The remaining soldier continues to fall back as the camera-wielding soldier fires at several figures with their pistol before the smoke seemingly bends in a swirl and a shot fires at them. The camera falling to the side as blood quickly spills over the floor. The remaining soldier places several devices onto the wall before falling back as the camera distorts and rubble begins falling in the tunnel they arrived from. Before the rubble fully falls, a rather large four-legged figure emerges from the smoke, with light bending around the barrel of a gun that dangles from underneath their spider-like creature, before firing, hitting the remaining soldier squarely in the chest, a burst of red being the last sight as the rubble falls, leaving the robot and the sarcophagus on the other side. The feed then ends.
Black Box. End of recording.